Welcome, everyone, to another Relate Well Live with Dr. Rick Marks. It's great to be here again, and we're going to talk about answering questions to communication and marriage. We'll also answer your questions if you have some, all right? So this is going to be interactive. If you want to join me, feel free. I'll be able to watch right here. I've got my Instagram. And right over here, I have my, in the camera in front of me here, the Instagram one here. Over here, I have my YouTube and Facebook set up. So we're streaming live. That's right, live. If I was dead, I'd actually be just laying here doing nothing, and you'd probably get bored rather quickly within 3 seconds, I'm sure, just pass on. So I am live, but we're also live. This is real time, folks, right? And so I've got some questions that have been sent to me. So I'm going to answer those as a Relate Well Live. And while we're doing this, I encourage you that if you have questions that you want answered, then say, hey, Dr. Rick, type it in. I'll be monitoring the comment sections on the different platforms here that we're streaming on. And you can interact and get some of your questions answered as well. All right. And so for those of you who don't know about me or just tuning in, I'm Dr. Rick Marks. I'm an author. I create content around healthy marriages and relationships. I teach healthy marriage. I actually do a lot of marriage repair for highly distressed marriages. There are 3 and 4 day marriage intensives. Do a lot of those. People come from around the country here to Jacksonville, Florida, which is where I'm based out of and where I live. And not only that, I do these, I do videos, and we have at relatewell.us a research-based curriculum, 9 sessions that teaches you the fundamentals for building a healthy relationship with anyone so that you can relate well. So we teach communication skills. We teach problem-solving skills. We teach how to confide. We teach how the brain bonds. We teach how to emotionally regulate. We teach you how to be aware when you're in a fight, flight, or freeze, that lizard response of the brain to conflict in the world. And then we give you core communication skills, not principles, skills. We teach you what to do different to create a difference. And by the way, I believe so much in all this. I raised my children with them when they were young. Why? I wanted my kids to be healthy, mature adults. Emotionally when they became adults, not as I was. When I got married, I was still emotionally a child. And so I had to grow up as an adult. Kind of a bummer. But anyways, I did it, 60 years old. My wife is 61, and we are living by the principle we teach. We are in us, and we believe in the us in marriage, and that living for us is the most higher way of living life. Living for yourself is easy. You don't think about it, you just do it. It's also primal. Living for us is the better way in marriage. I always tell people that do a lot of marriage premarital work. We actually have a premarital program online as well. Relate Well Premarital. Marriage is giving up the I for the we. If you don't want to be a we, just stay single, be you. All right. Now, again, if you're tuning in, feel free to ask a question. Let me know you're there. All right. Would love to interact with you, interface with you. Those kind of things. All right, so let's begin. Number one, what makes it difficult for you to express your true feelings to your partner? This question is asking, why is it that some people find it a challenge, find it difficult to actually be open, to be vulnerable, or the way we say it in our world, to confide in another? What makes it difficult for someone to express their true feelings, which is really about confiding and vulnerability, to their partner? Well, before we talk about the marital part of this, let's talk about what we bring with us to the marriage. Now, I was one who did not share my true feelings with anyone. You see, when I grew up in a broken home where there was abuse and craziness. And my father, I was around 10, 11, bought a cow prod, used to shock us. He always lived in fear of that. He had an anger problem. But my stepmother probably had the greater damage for me because she's always critical of me, always put me down. And I remember my early years, she raised me since I was, 4 or 5. She's the only mother I really knew. but I never could measure up. And what I learned early on, if I did take her to share something, she'd insult me. She would attack what I was saying, or she'd invalidate it, or she'd criticize me. And I learned early on, don't share. Don't share. I was made fun of when I was in elementary school. I was the kid, folks. I was a kid that was picked last when they picked teams at recess. I was that kid. I had a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of deep insecurities. But what I learned about the world was the world isn't safe to be yourself. What I learned was people will hurt you and harm you. And the people closest to you, you can't trust them with your heart either. And so one of the reasons that a lot of people find it difficult to open up and share their feelings is because they already learned you can't do it. They were put down or criticized or made fun of, insulted, or they were told they weren't good enough. They were told you don't measure up. They were told you'll never amount to anything. And they began to believe it. They began to believe it was true for them. They began to believe that their value and worth was nothing to anybody. They began to believe that they didn't matter. You see, I say this way, there's 4 questions every child needs answered early in life. These 4 questions must be answered early in life for you to be a healthy, mature adult later in life. The failure of these 4 questions being answered early in life sets you up for relationship problems down the road. What are the 4 questions? They are these. Do I matter? Do I matter? Number 2 is, do I have value? Do I have value to you? Number 3 is, am I loved? Am I lovable? Am I loved? Am I lovable? See, I can believe that I'm loved, but I don't necessarily have to believe I'm lovable. You got to believe both. Am I loved / lovable? And number 4, do I have a purpose on this earth? Is there a reason that I exist, or do I just exist? When you believe that you value, that you matter, that you're loved and lovable, and that you have a purpose, these people tend to thrive. They're open, they're intimate, because they can create intimate relationships. You cannot create an intimate relationship without confiding, because confiding is the key to bonding and attaching to another person. Because wherever you confide, you're going to bond. Think chat rooms, Facebook. You'll confide with someone you don't know on Facebook, and you want to confide with your spouse? No wonder you still have an affair with them. Why? Because where you confide, you bond. And so one of the reasons that people find it difficult to express their true feelings to their partner is because they never learned to. They learned the world wasn't safe to do that. Now, I had learned that. And so now I'm dating well, we're getting married. I'm thinking I can start to be the real me, only to find out in those early years of marriage I couldn't be. You see, because I didn't measure up. I didn't measure up. She would criticize me physically. She would criticize me spiritually. It was like the same things I got growing up, I'm now getting from her. And I didn't want that from her. I had a hope that that the things that I had wouldn't be, and the things that I hoped for could be. And what I found out was, no, not in the early years. Now, I live it today at age 38. Her and I have grown and healed and from our brokenness and the broken families we came from. So we create a strong, healthy us today, you see. But in those early years, I learned from her that I can't be open. I learned from her that I can't trust her with my feelings. I learned from her that I'll be judged and criticized. Is it any wonder? I already learned that the world wasn't safe. So I'm not going to open up and share with you. Why would I? I learned the world isn't safe. But then she agrees to date me, and we start dating, we get engaged, and I have all these hopes and dreams, only to find out I can't do it with you either. And so I learned not to. I think no kid comes into this world distrusting. No kid comes into the world afraid to be open and share. Think about the little things kids say. I mean, they'll just say anything, right? They'll just say anything without thinking about what they're saying, right? You put a little kid up on the top of the refrigerator and they'll jump off and want you to catch them. That's the trust they have. But sadly, the way we raise them, the way we treat them, the way you talk to them tells them whether they can trust people with their heart or not. And the reason you find it difficult to express your true feelings to your partner is because you don't trust people with your heart. Do you get it? You don't trust people with your heart because you learned you can't trust people with your heart. Dr. Rita DiMaria, a wonderful therapist out of the Pennsylvania area. She's a friend, known her for a long time. She had this little foam heart, about that big around, right? And years ago, I was with her, and she said, "I want to show you something, Rick." And she said, "Hold your hands out like this." So I held my hands out like this, right? And then as I was holding my hands out, she put that heart in my hand like this. She says, "Rick, I've just given you my heart. I've just given you my heart, Rick. Will you hold it and protect it and keep it safe? Always keeping it warm. Always letting my heart know you've got it. It's safe with me. Or when I place my heart in your hand, will you squash it? Will you step on it? Will you rub it out? Will you rip it apart?" And we do that to each other. We do that to each other in marriage. How sad that we do. When marriage is supposed to be the one place that we can take off our mask, where we can love each other unconditionally. Unconditionally. Why? What makes it difficult for you to express your true feelings to your partner? Because you've learned not to trust people with your heart. Now, here's the real challenge, folks. All pain of the human heart comes from relationship. All pain comes from relationship. Here's the other thing. All healing of the human heart comes from relationship. You wound it through relationship, but you heal it through relationship. Which means my path to healing is to take the risk to trust you with my heart. And when I place it in your hands, will you protect it? And if I find that I can put my heart in your hands and you protect it, that you won't squash it, you won't invalidate, you won't tear down, you won't destroy, you won't judge, you won't criticize. And then I begin to feel safe with you, and I begin to open my heart to you. When you open your hearts, when you open your spirit, they open their spirit up to you. I've found that I can speak into people's lives, even around things that are challenging in their life, problems they have, when they have trusted me in their heart, and then when they do, I treat them with goodwill and respect and empathy. What we call the four protectors on us: goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. And when you become a person of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy as a way of being, people will trust you with your heart. You want to know why? By living that way as a way of being a person of goodwill, a person of respect, you're sending the message, I'm a safe person. Why? Because personally, love always treats people with goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy. It is the nature of love. All right, second question. Again, those of you who follow me on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, if you have a question, feel free to ask your question. Say hi. Let me know you're there. All right. I'm monitoring the comment section. So please engage me. If there's something you agree with, type in yes. Some of you dears say, forget it, Rick. You're off your rocker. Whatever you want to say. It doesn't really matter to me. All right. Number 2 question. How do you feel when your partner fails to share his or her feelings with you? How do you feel when a person won't share their feelings with you? In other words, let's say maybe you're that open book, but they're not. I think the feelings can be different for different people, you see. For the healthy, mature person, when you notice a person is not able to open up and share their deep feelings, I think rather than anger or disgust, I think it just creates a feeling of compassion. You go, compassion? Why compassion? Simple. Because you recognize that people who guard themselves are actually just wounded people. They're just wounded. And you care about the woundedness, not about what they're doing. You're able to focus to the motive behind the behavior, not just the behavior. And when I began to realize that you're just a wounded person, out of that woundedness you don't trust, I'm not going to take the fact that you don't trust me personal. That would show my immaturity. That would show my issues. What I can do is say, wow, you really find it difficult to be open. I just want you to know I care. And I hope in some small way I can show you by my actions that I do love you and care for you. I appeal to people rather than take it personal. And one of the great things about mature people is they can enter into another person's emotional problems, emotional intensity, and not personalize it. Immature people take it personal. It's real simple. It's not rocket science. It's the way the world works. And so how do I feel when people don't share things with me? Okay. I got a son. He's kind of a, very thoughtful person, quiet, doesn't share a lot of his feelings. It's just his personality. In my early immature broken days, I used to take it personal because I thought, oh, he doesn't love me, he doesn't trust me. It wasn't about me. It's just who he is. It's just his personality. And I learned to respect that rather than internalize it. And so when you move to compassion, then you're not personalizing that someone's not opening up to you. You just see it as, well, they don't want to, or maybe I've done something that sends them, maybe I've done something that sends them a message they can't. Actually, maybe they just learn not to in their life and they're scared to, and that's okay too. I'd rather focus on the thing behind it rather than the action itself. All right. So how do you feel when your partner fails to share his or her feelings with you? Again, I said earlier, it could be different for different people. Some people could be angry, some people are resentful. Some people can be insecure around it, think there's something wrong with them. There's a lot of different feelings, but the feelings you have are based on the interpretation you're making about why they're not. Did you get that? The feelings that you have will be based on the interpretation, the belief that you have as to why they're doing that to you. I've just come to realize not to personalize the behavior, but look to the why. And I want to see the why, not from my perspective, but from their perspective. And then we can make a difference that makes a difference, all right? Number 4, what can you do to help your partner share his or her feelings? That's a great question, folks. What can you do? Let's say you're married to someone, or you got a boy or girlfriend out there, right? Or maybe you're a parent and you got kids that don't share their feelings. What can you do to, and this is key, help your partner share his or her feelings, not make your partner? I need to add that in there, because when you hear people's language quite a bit, they don't listen to the words they're using, but the words they're using that they're not being aware of is telling you how their brain works. What can I do to make them love me? What can I do to make them open up? What can I do to get them to do that, to get them to? To get that phrase, to get them to, that implies power and control. That implies you have the control and the power to make them do something. You can torture them. You can waterboard them. You can spit on them, I guess. You can hit them with a 2x4. You can insult them. You can do all those things. And some people probably will, and some people will dig their heels in and go, no, why? You don't have the power to make someone open up to you. However, I like the question, what can I do to help you? What could I do? Listen to the phrasing now. What could I do to make it safe in this relationship? What could I do to make it safe for you and our relationship to want to take the risk to open up? Did you get that? What could I do to make it safe for you to want to open up, to take the risk to share? First thing is you become a person worthy of being opened up to. That's right. It all starts with you. You become the kind of person that they would trust and desire to open up to. You've got to earn the creds to do that. Now, therapists and psychologists do, because that's our job. Let's forget about those kinds of people, right? We're talking about, you're talking about your marriage, your intimate relationships, connections. You become the kind of person that a person would feel safe. Now, I believe the way you do that is by living out what we call the 4 protectors of a relationship, the 4 protectors with us. When you choose to live your life of goodwill, respect, humility, and empathy as a way of being, when you become a person who is goodwill, who is respectful, who is caring, and you can't do that without humility. HREG, H that equals REG. Humility equals respect, empathy, and goodwill. When you live those 3 things out, you will be humble. Why? Because humility requires, those things require humility. And so when you live out of that equation of H equals REG, HREG, when those things are a part of who you are on a regular basis as a way of being, people will trust you. Why? They'll sense they can. Why? Because you're not emotionally triggered. You're not critical. To criticize and negate someone, there's no goodwill in it. It is disrespectful. It's very uncaring. It just means you're in pride, which only means you care about you. You don't care about them. And so what I found is you become the kind of person that earns the right to open up to. You know, now as a therapist, people come in over the years. I've been doing the work. I've been in the field 30 years doing some level of mental health care and different variations over 30 years. I'm 60 now. And I just noticed down here, Ken Mann, he's the man, M-A-N-N, but Ken Mann is the man. And he's a phenomenal man, you know. But I got to mentor Ken many years ago. He's a wonderful friend. But one thing that is for sure, if I had been the kind of person that he watched me on a regular basis mistreat people, he never would want to open up to me or even learn from me. Why? Why would I learn from someone like him? He doesn't live out what he teaches. Now, I'm not saying I do it perfectly, by the way, okay? But I must have done it enough that he trusted me with his heart to teach him and share things with him. He also found that I would share with him my own journey of healing and growth. You see, and to this day, Ken's one of those guys in my life that I can be open with. And I love that. I love that about that man. He is that kind of a man himself, you see. He's a very safe person. So the first thing you got to do is you got to be the kind of person that someone would feel safe to open up, which means you got to become a healthy, mature adult. You got to learn to emotionally regulate yourself. You've got to learn to tell that little voice in your head, shut up and don't say anything when you want to say something. There's wisdom in when to talk and when not to talk. There's wisdom in what to say and how you say it. And so you become the person that earns the right. Now, secondly, because a lot of people come to me who have walls and they believe that they can be open with me, but they're afraid to. Did you get the difference? They believe they can, but they're afraid to. So one of the things you have to do then with those who feel they can and believe that you're good enough to open up to, but they're afraid to, you have to help them with the fear. And this is where you kind of gets clinical in a sense. You go, what's your fear? If you took the risk to let me behind your giant wall that protects your heart, if you let me behind the wall, what's your fear? Well, I'm afraid you'd judge me. I'm afraid that you would criticize me. But sometimes I've heard this. I'm afraid I'll fall apart. I'm afraid if I go there, I'll get lost in all the pain. and I won't be able to come back. See, it was never about me anyways. There was a fear that if I was to touch all that hurt and all that pain, I'd lose me. And so they never faced those things because fear is the enemy. Fear is the problem. And I'm reminded of an old saying that God did not give a spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. I've learned, because I lived fearful most of my life, always as a kid and in my early 20s, in my marriage too. Deeply insecure. I was always afraid of judgment and criticism. And what I learned was fear was my enemy. Fear was my enemy. It was a spirit of fear. And I had to learn to love myself and believe in myself and take a risk and let people in. And if I took a risk and let someone behind the wall and they turned out to not be the person, don't take it personal. They're just not the person. Find the people who belong behind the wall and keep the other ones out. It's real simple. Real simple. So what can you do to help your partner share his or her feelings? Number one, be the kind of person that they would feel safe to want to take the risk with. And secondly, recognize that some people don't do it, don't open up, don't share because they're afraid. They're afraid. Another reason that some people don't open up, share their feelings to you is because they're still angry and resentful. They're angry and resentful. Why? Because the anger is safer than feeling the pain that's underneath the anger. In other words, I'd rather share the anger about my betrayal than to share the betrayal itself. The betrayal itself is very painful. So I'd rather stay angry about the betrayal. Anger is said sometimes is a secondary emotion. It's really a cover for pain. The last question we have here. By the way, those listening in, if you have a question, ask right away. Okay, I've got my last question here. But if you have a question or a comment, feel free to type it in and ask. Let's have a dialogue. All right, so here's the last question that I have to answer. And then if you have any, we'll answer yours. If not, we'll wrap up another Relate Well with Dr. Rick Marks. Okay, last question. What can your partner do that will help you share your feelings? What can your partner do that would help you share your feelings? You know, for me, when I first got married, I came from a broken home with a lot of alcoholism and craziness. And she, to me, emotionally, was very much like my stepmother, critical, judgmental, and that I would never measure up. That was the message she sent me in those early years of marriage. And I used to see her unconsciously as my stepmother. Of course, I would make statements like, "You're like my stepmother," you know, and that's because my brain saw it that way. I learned years later as she healed and grew up, she wasn't. She was very different. All right. However, one of the things that she could do that helped me, number one, was when I took a risk to share, don't personalize what I'm saying. Just don't take it personal. Once you personalize it, what it basically sends me is the message is still about you. This isn't about you. This is just about what's going on in me. I don't want you to take what I'm thinking personal. I don't want you to have to judge it, get defensive about it. It's just what's in me. If I can't share who I am with you, there's my heart. Remember we talked about the heart earlier? If I can't share my heart with you, then I won't, because you taught me not to. But you will share with someone. Bartender, a dog, some of the opposite sex at work. Oh, you'll share it. Because all humans are going to confide somewhere, even if it's to God in prayer. Because we're wired for connection and we're wired to confide. So one of the things I can do to help someone is become that person who is safe and not take personal the things that they think or feel that are related to me. You see? So I tell them, don't personalize what I'm saying. It's just what's inside me. But if I can't share what's inside of me, then I won't. Because you're telling me not to, based on your defensiveness. And so that's one of the things I can think of right off the top of my head. What can your partner do that will help you to share your feelings? Another thing that Luella could do was spend more time appreciating me rather than tearing me down. Notice the things that I do well. Notice the things that I am accomplishing, right? We all need to hear what's good about us. We all need to know that there are things that we do that our partner values, that they like. And so we need to be able to constantly share appreciations and gratitudes. Look, here's why. When you share on an abundance of gratitudes and appreciations on a regular basis, and I say do it every day, but when you share that as a way of being in your relationship, I know that you don't just see the negative, you see the positives in me. And because I know you see the positive, because you have a mindset to see the positive, what Gottman calls the positive perspective, once I know you have that, it's easier to take a risk with you and share my feelings with you. Why? Because I also know that you won't personalize it, you won't take it personal, and you won't see the negative. Yes, you're able to see the positive as well. How do I know that? Because you live that way as a way of being. You always live that way as a way of being. I had a man come down from a northern state. I've known him for a while. Met him at a marriage retreat I did a few years ago. And in that marriage retreat, he actually stood up. And there are 30 couples in the retreat. It's a 3-day retreat, all weekend. He stood up on Sunday morning and shared a history of abuse. And we're talking all forms of abuse in his childhood. And they had an alcohol problem and all these. And I'm thinking, man, this man is really vulnerable. And when he got done sharing what he wanted to say to the group, I got off the podium, went down there, and I gave him a hug. I said, man, that took courage. I built a friendship with him from that to last this day. Well, last year, he's in recovery now, alcoholism, sexual addiction, and he was doing his 5th step. Now, 5th step is after the 4th step. What's the 4th step? The 4th step is when you have to take a fearless moral inventory. In other words, you have to write down and confront all your defects of character. Every one of them. The things you've done throughout your life to hurt people. You write it all down. He had like 6 pages filled. He did a really good job on his defects of character and the way he's hurt people. And he called me up and he wanted to do his 5th step. What's the 5th step? That's when you have to take your list and share it to God, to yourself, and to another person. He came down from upstate and did his 5th step with me. He wanted me to hear it. And I said, why not your sponsor in your AA meeting? He said, Rick, there are things that I have written down that I am deeply ashamed of. Deeply ashamed of. He said, you're the only person I know that I could say those things to that wouldn't judge me. And I went, hey, you're right. You're right. I love you unconditionally. And he came down, and I'm telling you, they were things to be deeply ashamed of. I was like, whoa, I had no idea you did that kind of stuff. But you want to know something? After he shared it all, I just got up and gave him a hug. Why? It's all he needed. It's a part of his healing, to know that he can be completely open and vulnerable with someone and not get beat up and just get love. That to me is what the church is supposed to be, folks. But boy, when you become that kind of a person, people will know. They'll feel it from you. They'll feel it from you. That's who Jesus is, by the way, in my mind. The kind of person you can say anything to. He won't be mad at you. He won't be disgusted with you. He'll just care. He'll just care. What if you matured yourself to be that kind of a person that somebody can say, you know what? I need to share my defects of character list. And there are things I'm really, really ashamed of in my life. Things I've done to other people and to myself. You're one of the few people in my world that I know that won't judge me, that won't criticize me, who just listen and care. I was grateful that he saw that in me. Lori Gordon was that way to me, Dr. Lori Gordon. You see, folks, we need those people in our lives. But more importantly, it's because Dr. Gordon was that kind of a person. It's because what this man felt in me was I was that kind of a person. Are you that kind of a person? Are you that kind of a person? And if not, what prevents you from becoming it? Just a thought. Hey, it's Dr. Rick Marks, and it's another Relate Well with Dr. Rick. Learn more about us at Dr. Rick Marks, Rick Marks, MRKS.com, or relatewell.us if you're a minister listening and you'd love to have a marriage or relationship treat at your church. Let us know. Contact me. We do that quite often for churches. And what we do different is we don't teach you about, we teach you the how. How to bond, how to connect, how to communicate, how to become that kind of a person. Blessings, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.